What is going on, everyone? Cannabis Express 420 here. I want to give you guys a detailed description of how exactly I'm going to be tackling those girls in there. How am I going to be training this grow with my new environment, with my new equipment, and my new genetics? We're going to get right into it. So I am growing in a 5x2 closet, and I'm growing, my lineup is two White Widows because one of them died, two Cherry Cookies, Purple Ferrari, and a Cookies and Cream. That's all my plants right now. I also have my outdoor plants growing inside of a clone dome, but that's neither here nor there. How am I going to maximize my closet space? How am I going to maximize my plants? And how am I going to maximize my time with my training of my plants? By the way, if you want to see pictures of my plants at any time, you can go to my Twitter, which is linked down in the description below. You can also go to my Instagram. That's also linked down in the description below. Just an FYI. Maximize space. There's a couple things I'm implementing to my garden and to my grow pots and to my plants that are going to help me maximize my space and get a maximized yield inside of a minimal space. One thing you really need to pay attention to when you're growing in a smaller space, whether it be shorter or slimmer, you're going to need to be able to knock your plants down. You need to make them lateral so that they can grow more branches in a larger surface area. You're going to want to do this simply to make more tops with as little stress and as little effort as possible. Topping is also possible to do with this technique. When you bend your plants over, you're going to naturally show off these branches, these nodes on the side of your plant, which are going to eventually spread out and become their own branches. Consequently, they are also going to become tops. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. I have a Cherry Cookies that is starting to grow its branches out really well right this minute. And the way I'm going to achieve this actually is I'm going to firmly hold the stem of my plant in my fingers, and I'm going to roll it back and forth, increasing my pressure as I go to try to soften that stem. I'm going to go up and down a little bit until I get an area where I can bend it over at a sharp angle, a 90-degree angle or a little bit less sharp. All you need to do really is knock it down on its side, and at this second I am having during this training, I am also implementing paper clips being stabbed into the side of my grow pots to hold the plants there with garden ties, which you can pick up at pretty much any hydro store and also most gardening stores. Like I got mine at Tractor Supply Co. It's super common. I also found my perlite there when I could not find it at hydro stores. So if you're looking for perlite to aerate your soil, you can go there, pick up a pretty cheap bag, but that's also for a different video. One thing I'm going to keep consistent is actually the stem training. I'm going to do that for all of the branches. I'm going to do it for every single stem that comes out, because every single stem has potential in the beginning. Once your plant starts maturing a little bit more and you start getting really thick vegetation, you're going to have to take some of that off, which moves us into our next technique that I'm going to be using, not currently, but when they get bigger in a month or so, I'm going to really need to focus on defoliating my plants. Now, defoliating is super important. Not only is it going to make sure your plant is aerated, make sure there's wind, ventilation basically going through your plant, but the light is also going to be shining through to get to every part of your plant, which is going to maximize the photosynthesis, which is going to maximize the growing. And not only that, another benefit is that bugs will not be able to easily land on your plants, and moisture will not be able to stay stagnant. These are all bonuses when it comes to defoliating your plant. Better growth, less risk for pests or disease, and good light exposure. All of those things are extremely important when you grow cannabis, and defoliation really helps your plant along. These plants do grow in a certain genetic way, but that does not mean that the genetic way they're growing isn't going to eventually kill themselves. So that's something you really need to pay attention to, and something I will be paying attention to for sure. The next thing I'm going to be getting into, once I'm defoliating and I'm doing all these things, one more thing I'm going to be possibly implementing is super cropping. Now, super cropping is very similar to just bending the branches and getting them twisted and weakening them so they can grow back stronger. However, when you super crop, what you're doing is you're taking a big section of that branch all at once, breaking it at a certain point, and then turning it at a 90-degree angle. Now, this is going to do exactly the same thing, except for this is something you implement right before flower, when you're going to be flipping it after it recovers, in about 3 to 5 days, I would say you would be good after a super cropping. Some people might say different. That's perfectly okay. You have 2 to 3 weeks of a stretch before you get to see those buds. So you will be recovered before the bud production in any case. So do not worry about not letting your plant recover super long. Now, thanks to the super cropping, your plant is going to be growing very dense buds on a very large surface area. That is huge. Now, you obviously have to bend it in the right directions and make it fit inside your grow space. But if you have a small plant in a small grow space, this is one way that you can maximize your grow space. The next thing you're going to be looking for is a scrog net. And scrog nets, you usually use at least 2 layers. And you're going to place one over before it goes through its stretch, and you're going to weave it through and make sure everything is good and your plant has enough space to not only grow, but will be held up by that net. Now, the second one is going to go about, 6 to 8 inches over. And this is going to be the one that it stretches into. So you're going to want to make sure that gap is good enough that it will stretch through and be able to get all the light, because you're going to want every single branch held up by as much trellis net as possible. So getting that net in an optimal position is going to be a lifesaver and game changer for you. What this is going to do is, when your plant is growing buds and it's swelling up and gaining more weight, it's going to be able to produce more bud than it normally would, because it does not need to hold up its own branches. It is supported by the trellis net. And not only that, the trellis net also serves another purpose of holding your plant down and spreading it out as it grows. So you increase your surface area and increase your light penetration and increase your airflow, all automated just by using a trellis net. Thank you for joining my TED Talk.